I'm Sam Rose, and you're tuning in to Commerce is Chaos, the podcast for consumer brand founders who know that building a business is messier than the highlight reel shows. Your supplier just missed their deadline, your top product is out of stock, and your competitor somehow launched the same thing at half the price. Sound familiar? Every week, we dive into the real problems that keep founders up at night, from inventory disasters to supply chain nightmares, because surviving the chaos is what separates brands that fail from brands that scale. Vanessa Phillips turned a celiac diagnosis and a Ziploc bag of homemade dumplings into the #1 natural frozen snack and appetizer brand in the country. It's now sold in nearly 25,000 stores to a majority of customers who aren't even gluten-free. Thank you so much for coming. I am such a huge fan of what you've built. I also want to completely, if you'll permit me, nerd out on recipes and cold chain in this session. And it's not because I'm picking on you, but I might be picking on you a little bit because I have a feeling that you know more than most people on the planet about both of those things. So to get us started, just give us a little tidbit of like the very, very beginning days of it. Like, what was that itch that you had to scratch or the opportunity that you saw? I heard there was a Ziploc bag involved. I would like to know where that Ziploc bag is now. Is it in a frame? We could put it back here.
Um, well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and to talk to you. So Feel Good Foods, we are a gluten-free frozen food brand sold in 25,000 grocery stores. It really all started with me getting a diagnosis of celiac disease and having to go gluten-free and teaming up very early on with a chef who was very inspired by the challenge of cooking gluten-free for me. And he wasn't gluten-free. So, from day one, he held us both to like a very high standard of be able to really like pressure test it and be like, does this taste gluten-free? Is this something that I would eat not being gluten-free? And that was really the start. So, together we started creating recipes in our kitchen, and it was really for me. And then when I realized that not that it wasn't that hard, but that it was definitely able to be done and that all these foods I missed, I could enjoy again, it just seemed like natural that I would share it with the rest of the world, or right now, just the USA. But yeah, it really started from like a very personal space for me in my life after just growing up around food, loving food, and then receiving a diagnosis that for a short time I thought I was going to have to give all of these foods up.
Wow. And you didn't. How lucky. And how lucky that we all are that you share it with the world. And like, it's so delicious that it doesn't even matter. I mean, it's great that it's gluten-free, but also who would know? And I feel like that's one of the biggest things with dietary restrictions and food restrictions, that you feel othered all of a sudden because you have like it could be a preference or it could be an allergy, whatever it is. You're like, I have to compromise. And I think that the thing that you're representing to people is that you don't have to compromise to feel good.
It's interesting because I do meet people all the time that say that being on a gluten-free diet is really challenging. And I obviously empathize with that. But at the same time, like, I have never eaten foods that don't taste good. Like, I'm not going to force myself to eat something that doesn't like excite me. So either I'm going to adhere to the diet that's intrinsically gluten-free and just enjoy all the ingredients that do not have gluten in them naturally, or I'm going to work really hard to, find a way to replicate something that traditionally would have gluten, but literally taste exactly the same, because I'm not just feeding people who are gluten-free. Like, we really make foods for everyone to enjoy, and gluten-free is one attribute, but like, first and foremost, it's all about creating foods that are delicious, made with simple ingredients and convenient. And then the gluten-free is always there so that I can eat it too. But it's not even what we lead with. So if it doesn't taste just as good as what I remember from when I was a kid, then we just don't launch it.
Right. I mean, and you had the advantage of having like a live test audience, which I was a customer of too, by the way, way back in the day. And tell us a little bit about Chelsea Market and the experience of like cooking this in a real restaurant situation, and then how you kind of made that leap into the cold case.
So I grew up in New York City in the restaurant industry. My family was in the restaurant industry. They own restaurants. And so that was always a very familiar place for me and probably it was what I always thought I would do when I was, growing up. I knew I would do something with food. Restaurants was really familiar. So I was like, oh, maybe one day I'll own a restaurant. And then when went gluten free, I started actually first making lasagnas, gluten free lasagnas in my apartment and delivering them around New York City. And then when I realized that I definitely didn't have the infrastructure to keep that up, my partner and I opened Friedman's inside the Chelsea market. And Friedman's was really a concept built similarly to Feel Good Foods in that it was built as a space for everyone. There was gluten free food, there was food that had gluten in it, but really we were inviting everyone, right? And despite whatever your dietary restriction was, like we really tried to accommodate everybody. And at that time, gluten free, it wasn't like as mainstream of a diet as it is today. So we were really surprised by the number of gluten free diners that would come into the restaurant. And also, we were attracting people from literally all over the world because the Chelsea market, which is where the first Friedman's was, is very touristy. So for us, it was more of just this light bulb moment that gluten
Yeah.
free is not as niche as we thought. And when you can create gluten-free foods that don't taste gluten-free, you're really going to attract both and really bridge the gap between people who are looking at it as like a dietary preference and then the people who have to eat it for health reasons.
Yeah.
So we did a really good job, I think, of creating foods that were so delicious that we were bringing,
Sure.
bringing people together, and then they were just ordering the appetizer that was gluten-free to share. And then we were like, okay, how does that translate? How do we reach more people? How do we get inside people's homes? And the concept there was if you have one person in your house who's gluten free, you don't want to be buying two sets of pot stickers, two sets of mozzarella sticks. So if you have three kids or you're gluten free, but your partner's not, we just wanted to have like one solution and have something in the freezer that the whole family could enjoy. Friedman's definitely was sort of the foundation for that. And Feel Good Foods obviously is so much more expansive and became so much bigger than what we originally set out to create. But the general thesis is very much the same.
I mean, Friedman is a legend though, too. Not that Feel Good is not legendary, but my kids were like obsessed with the mac and cheese. I don't even think as a mom, I knew that I wasn't paying attention to gluten-free. Certainly not for like a 2-year-old, but like, who was, luckily didn't have to have that as part of his consideration set. But like, we would just go for the mac and cheese. And I
Mhm.
have to say, it was so emphatically good that, you're right. Like the lifestyle piece kind of comes along with it. But if you're in the right place with delicious food, you can build an audience that is just selecting into deliciousness. And then if it's better for them, like, well, great.
Right, right. Yeah. well, yeah, that's the idea. So glad it resonated with you. That's what we were aiming for.
He's going to be very jealous that I got to talk to you and he didn't.
Um,
He's 13 now.
oh, okay. I have a
So he's
13-year-old, so
a mac and cheese aficionado. So
yeah, get it. I totally get it.
how different, I mean, I know that the answer is probably like really, really different, but give us a couple of like fun anecdotes about how different it is to run like a service business in Chelsea Market versus like running this, um, much bigger, pre-made food business. Is there any like other than the food and the recipes themselves, are there things that you learned in hospitality that really translated into CPG? Or is it like food is the common thread, but these things are completely different as businesses?
So that, food is they're completely different businesses, and it's been a while since I've run a restaurant. I left Friedman's, almost a decade ago, or over a decade ago. So I'm probably a little bit rusty in being able to really, speak to kind of the challenges and complexities of running a restaurant because I'm sure that the industry has evolved quite a bit from when I was running it. And, I think too is just the fact that Friedman's was local and that I was, literally in front of my consumer every day. The transaction time is a lot shorter, so it's easier to kind of really have your finger on the pulse. Whereas, when you're running a frozen food company, obviously the transaction time can be a year, and your consumers are everywhere, and you're not having that face-to-face interaction in the same way. So
Yeah.
I would say it's a lot more complex, um, and a lot harder to manage. Um, I also think that the food is the common thread, but you're a lot more in control of your menu at a restaurant, right? It's one kitchen, rather
And you
than,
can change it
whenever I
overnight if you have to, right?
yeah,
Like,
exactly, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think building, a CPG brand, very challenging and very complex, especially frozen, but incredibly rewarding as well. And I just, for me, like one of the things that I loved about Feel Good Foods in general is just the brand, right? Like I really, continue to feel incredibly inspired by the brand and the brand mission and what it stands for. So, with all the complexities comes even more reward.
I think that's a really good point that like if you build a thing that you love being around and then you continue to nurture it, it's so much more joyful than like it's like you have to be stoked on your own. You have to be high on your own supply a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, do you how many days a week are you eating feel good snacks?
Well, we're always testing
Yeah,
in our kitchen. We have, a full kitchen, in our office, really, really full, like very robust R&D team, product development team. So I'm always testing. It's mostly like newer innovation that I would say that I'm eating pretty frequently. In terms of like the legacy items that like I still eat. So I buy Feel Good Foods for my son and his friends. They love it. And I would say that my son eats Feel Good Foods probably twice a week.
yeah.
It's funny because our first product ever was the pot stickers. That was the product that we launched with. That was what I missed most when going gluten free. My dad owned Chinese restaurants growing up, so I ate a ton of dumplings and egg rolls when I was a kid. I loved them so much. It was my favorite food. When I went gluten free, I was like, I need to figure out how to continue to eat this. Like, I cannot accept a life without it. So, our first line ever was pot stickers. And till this day, so many years in, I crave them. I love them. They're like my ultimate comfort food. They're just to me, the most nourishing. Like, if I'm feeling sad, like under the weather, if my plans fall through and I happen to have like a night in or a night alone, I am going right for the right for the pot
Right.
stickers. I always have them in my freezer. Like sometimes I'll have them twice in a week, sometimes I won't eat them for a month, but I love them so much and they just bring me so much joy.
Yeah.
Whenever we launch something new, I'm obsessed with it. I'll eat it like every day for a week. I can't get enough of it. And then I get my fix. And then I'm thinking about like, what else?
What's
What's
next?
next? What else
Yeah.
can we make? What else do I miss? What else haven't I had in so many years? I do that a lot. I'll be like, oh, when was the last time I had a jalapeno bite? And then that's
Yeah.
kind of sometimes sort of the inspiration between like thinking about something and then actually deciding to launch it.
When you think about those products that you're sort of like, or maybe the next obsession, let's call it, are you adding to that the lens of, and I need to be able to deliver this through our existing supply chain and it will be in the freezer aisle? Or do you let yourself kind of be a little bit more open-ended about it? And if you are, like, what does your team say when you're like, hey, let's do crackers?
I think that our team would say that I am definitely to a fault an idea person. I've tried to get a little bit more discipline between like having a free space to ideate and then actually like really have a launch strategy because if I let myself run wild, yeah, I would just be like spitballing all day. We can't do everything and we can't do everything at once. There is a really big difference between like having just and we do this. We have just free sessions where we just go and we're like, let's think about this and this. 90% of those ideas don't ever come to fruition, but it's
Yeah.
really fun. We'll go out to eat and get inspiration. We're always ideating, but that's obviously very different than like really coming up with ideas that we bring to market. And I would say that that's like a mix between obviously really analyzing the data and looking at like, because it's not just about me. I'm actually like a microscopic piece of this at this point. It's really more about like, what do our consumers want? Where is their demand? Where is their competition? Where is their white space? So really looking at the data is incredibly informative to understand. A lot of times, like what works in a restaurant, it does not translate to frozen. People have very different behavior when they're eating out at a restaurant versus when they're buying frozen food. So really understanding that. And then what can work within, yes, our supply chain, our manufacturing system. We have ideas a lot, but it's really difficult to scale. It could require a lot of investments in machinery. It would be, really difficult to source certain ingredients. So there's like a whole stage gate process that goes into it. And there have been so many ideas over the years that I've been obsessed with that we just couldn't do for whatever reason. Like it was just too complex, too expensive. So not every idea makes it through the process and lands on the shelf, because there is really so much that goes into it.
What's like the one that got away? The snack that got away?
Um,
Or if you're still working on it and you can't tell me, it's
yeah.
okay. Sometimes the one that got away is gonna come back, right? Like if I know if I know an
Actually, I
entrepreneur,
mean,
it's
there
like
are things that I'm not going to say because I haven't given up on them yet. The one thing that we're not going to do that I could say that I thought about doing years and years and years ago was creating but now it exists. A couple brands have done it, but creating like a gluten-free Uncrustable.
yeah.
We talked about that like early on, and it was difficult. But I remembered when I was a kid. I mean, this is an example of like a childhood memory. I remembered eating a Uncrustable, and I loved soft bread that wasn't toasted, wasn't crunchy, just like that pillowy white bread. It was something that you really just can't recreate, especially, I mean, maybe now, but early on my gluten-free journey, that was just something that I just could not
Yeah.
recreate, like Wonder Bread. So I remember reminiscing for
You're gonna like texture now. Like
yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I would say that was something that, bread in general is challenging. So, we try different like sandwiches and stuff. But I sometimes what I will say happens is we'll come up with an idea and it won't work. And then years later, it was one element, like one piece of that idea that turned into another idea that became our number one item.
how often is
So,
that like a technology that needs to come online that you kind of have to wait for like the world to catch up versus something where you can say, well, we're gonna like and have you done this? Or you're kind of saying we're gonna innovate this, like we're gonna create this technology in house. Maybe it will proliferate to the world, maybe not, but like we're gonna do it versus we're gonna wait.
Um, I don't know if I think that it happens organically that we have to wait sometimes. I don't know if we're so disciplined to say we are gonna wait because the world isn't ready. I think it's really just, it happens. It has its own timeline. And I have looked back over the years and been like, wow, I can't believe this product today really started 8 years ago, but I
Yeah.
didn't realize it because we're constantly doing different iterations of things. We'll put things on a back burner and then something will come up or we'll meet someone and we'll be like, "Oh, wow, we should revisit that," because, so it's really just sort of like always in progress. We don't ever really like kill an idea. It's just we're always innovating. So that's why, like, even when you ask me, is there anything, like, it's hard because yes, there are things right now that we haven't talked about in a couple years, but they could easily, you know, we could have like something could, ignite that again and we could start
Right.
working on it.
You start thinking about jalapenos and all of a sudden.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's
Oh,
also too, we're always looking at, different parts of the grocery store and where we can live, and then that opens up a whole new, set of, eating occasion and ideas. So, an ingredient could become really popular or trendy, and they're like, "Oh, what about if we took that ingredient and did a spin-off like, our mac and cheese ball or our jalapeno bite?" So we're constantly having fun with it. And I think that one of the great things about Feel Good Foods is we're all foodies and we
yeah.
all love to eat and we all love to talk about food. So that's like the fun side of the job. So there's never any shortage of ideas.
So you've covered snacking and breakfast. Is there like another eating occasion food territory that is in your sights, or do you feel like there's a lot more green field to kind of playing where you're at?
So breakfast is a newer category for us, and we are expanding very quickly in breakfast. We recently launched, I think like a week ago actually, in Kroger. We launched pancake and sausage sticks, which is super fun and very whimsical and nostalgic. And that's going to be going out, nationwide over the next couple months. And then we also launched these breakfast biscuit bites with jalapenos, actually. Super delicious, really convenient. It's like a biscuit egg mashup. Very addictive. So breakfast is newer. We launched French toast sticks in April. That honestly was one of the most explosive launches I've experienced in my career, and couldn't even keep them on the shelf. And one of the things that I think from the gluten-free perspective is to be able to really take that position of being like, we are the first gluten-free. So that helped with the French toast sticks, but
Yeah.
also they're just so delicious that we very quickly start to outperform ones with gluten. So breakfast is new and we're really having fun because it is different than snacks. It's a different consumer. It's a
Yeah.
different eating occasion. Obviously it's very fueled on convenience. People don't have nearly as much time in the morning as they do when they're snacking or entertaining. So really trying to understand the consumer behavior within that category. And then yes, there are other, areas of the store where we're exploring and, you might just see us pop up somewhere else very soon.
Maybe. You have to come back and announce it when it happens.
I will.
It's a re-invitation. Um, you've got uh like so much depth of uh there's so much depth that goes into the product development process here, right? You've got like these kind of ingredient constraints, and then you've got, I'm just imagining, but I'd love for you to kind of imagine with me, or help me paint the picture. You have to fry things, you have to bake things, you have to freeze things. What does the factory look like? How much have you vertically integrated versus are you at a co-man? And maybe like, as the young Vanessa sort of like opened the door into this world of CPG kind of like production at scale, what were the first things that surprised you about just like how it's made?
hmm Well, I mean, yeah, we have 30 SKUs. So we are not made in, and all of them are very different. There's a huge difference between a pizza bagel, a pot sticker, and a mozzarella stick, right? I mean, they don't, none of the equipment overlaps. And they're all very specialized equipment. So every single product line, I mean, we have our bake line, we have our breaded, battered, fried line, and then, steam line, but they're all very different and they all are sort of their own beast. And it's, like trying to, do 18 courses with 5 different cuisines for dinner, right? Like it's just,
Right.
they're all very, very different. So we don't see a lot of integration. Everything is separate and every line is its own kind of living, breathing organism.
Yeah.
Um, and we spend a lot of time early on, like really investing in getting the product, up and running. I mean, I think today we've gotten better because now we really look at sort of like what our capabilities are and how we can innovate within sort of the framework that we have. But, for example, the pot stickers, that was something that we were working on before we ever launched for 3 years
Wow.
just because it was, there's a really big difference between making them in a restaurant and commercializing them.
Yeah.
So, and the gluten-free aspect is obviously a lot more, it's more temperamental to, make a gluten-free and dough or wrapper, whatever, than with gluten, because obviously the wheat is like such a binder and
Mm.
gives elasticity that you're just not going to get from gluten-free flours. So it is incredibly complex, and we have a really expansive team that is just very dedicated to really figuring out how to commercialize all of these different products because they are all very unique and very different from one another.
Taking us back to the Ziploc bag story, which I'm alluding to, but you can tell.
Oh,
uh, how scale ready were you at that point? So the story is, I'll tell you the short version, but you can illuminate. Vanessa shows up with a Ziploc bag full of dumplings to a Whole Foods meeting, and like nobody knows if it's going to work, but they shockingly, but not surprisingly, say yes, and the rest is sort of history. Am I getting that mostly right?
Yes, that actually wasn't even a meeting. I sent it in the mail.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
With like dry ice
Yes. And no packaging.
and no packaging. And okay, wait.
No,
Okay, keep
we
going.
had
So yeah,
we had, I think we had like a mock-up on, like that we printed just on like flat paper. It wasn't like a rendering of any sort. It wasn't in a box. And how ready were we? We were not ready at all.
and did you
We
have
had
just like dollar bills stuffed inside as like dunnage in the box, or like how did you get that?
we it was actually crazy because I'm a really big manifester. So even though I had no experience in consumer food at all, or I didn't know anything, I sent it to Whole Foods with like just a lot of hope. And I was like, no, this is going to happen. They're going to say yes. They're definitely going to say yes because I believed so much in the idea and the brand and the fact that the world just needed gluten-free pot stickers. And I also just knew that they tasted really good and that
Yeah,
even if you weren't gluten-free. So I was elated, but I actually wasn't surprised. And
right.
then when I realized what I needed to do over the next 6 months, because, when you get accepted into a retailer, it's not tomorrow. Although today you have to be very buttoned up and it's just a very different landscape and the industry is very different now. This was at a time when, you were able to go to regions of Whole Foods rather than every Whole
Yeah,
Foods. So we were fortunate that we got in at a time where it was a little bit more flexible. Um, but the expectation was still the same that you were going to deliver and be, ready at a date and, have all your, ducks in a row. So, but we did have some time and I think it was about 6 months and we just got like a crash course on everything consumer food related and we found a manufacturer and we went all in. I mean, we really immersed ourselves in just the learnings of how to get a food brand launched. And so it was a wild journey. And yeah, we definitely, tripped up along the way, but we just kept going and we kept growing and here we are today with 30 SKUs and 25,000 stores, so it paid off.
are you an adrenaline junkie?
I mean, probably, but I don't know if I would describe myself as an adrenaline junkie. I would say that I am a true entrepreneur.
Yeah, highly risk tolerant.
Risk is not something that stresses me out. I think what stresses me out is feeling that I'm not taking a risk.
I completely agree. Weekends can be hard for me sometimes for that reason. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing? We're like, I'm like, what's the plan? Where can we go break something?
Yeah. I also, when I was younger, I was raised with parents that really taught me from a very early age to really celebrate mistakes.
Mm,
And,
love that.
um, yeah, I remember I had a teacher when I was young, and whenever I would make a mistake in school, she would say, "Congratulations, you made a mistake."
Right.
So I think that that is something that, is still with me today. And because I mean, building a business, you are constantly making mistakes. You are also going to just get, really beat down, right? I mean, there are
Yeah.
days where it is like, can someone please just give me a yes, right? Like, I need something, but it fuels me. And when I do make a mistake or I do, have some temporary setback or I fail a meeting or a product launch doesn't go as planned, I always kind of just go with the, motto of like, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the congratulations anchor. I don't remember where I heard this, but I heard it at some point and I kept it. Like, if something goes wrong, I'm like, great. That's my word. I just come back to that. And then I'm like, okay, what's next? But there's
Yeah,
always like, there's a lesson or there's an opportunity
always.
or there's like like a close miss. Like, oh my gosh, thank goodness that didn't, sometimes it's only in hindsight, but you're like, oh, I'm really glad that didn't happen because this other thing could happen instead. And, yeah, it's just really interesting how much you can kind of manifest, that outcome for yourself of just like turning problems into opportunities over and over and over and over again. And I think that's a big part of it too, is just like reps, like reps on risk,
Yeah.
reps on being beat up.
Yeah, it's a mindset, right? Owning your own business is very personal, right? So it's very hard to take the personal out of it. But at the same time, it's a series of puzzles. And, when you look at it that way, it kind of makes it a little bit less emotional and more like just you're continuing your education. It's just
Yeah.
school that never ends. Like every day I'm like, here I am just facing challenges and trying to problem solve and keep my brain working. And when I take the emotion out of it and the idea that I'm doing this because it stemmed from this like personal struggle that I had as a kid, and I look at it more just like continuing to solve puzzles, I always stay incredibly engaged in a really healthy way.
Is there like a type of puzzle or game that you enjoy the most? Do you like puzzles that you're solving by yourself? Do you like puzzles that you solve with one or two friends or that are a big game that you're kind of playing around a table from the perspective of work, of course?
I definitely am very much. I don't like solving puzzles alone. I would say that I'm more collaborative, and I thrive off being with people. So I'm not someone that's like working in silos, and I actually find energy through other people. So definitely solving puzzles together for sure. Otherwise, it's going to feel very lonely. And, I think for me and my company, one of the greatest joys is that I love the people that I work with. And I'm always inspired by my team. I'm always
Yeah.
learning from my team. I learn so much every day from everybody that I work with. So I'm not a big fan of working alone. We have, we're a New York based company. We're all in the office together. And so many great ideas come from collaboration and us just sometimes just sitting in a room and just talking it out. And we'll be like, oh, that was a great idea. It's just like
Yeah.
somebody will just say something and we're all like, whoa, like love that. So definitely I'm a big believer in everyone being together.
Yeah.
And I think like humans in general, I think that's why the pandemic was like so jarring because I think we're really social creatures. I mean, I love my downtime for sure. Especially because I do think I exude so much energy professionally that I do love like spending a weekend and just chilling. But from a business perspective, I get a lot of inspiration from those who are around me.
And we get jalapeno poppers, so we're really grateful.
Yeah.
Um, I was curious too, going back to the beginning of that Whole Foods anecdote. And I know the world has changed a lot in the past 10, 15 years in terms of just like how regional these tests are and kind of what it looks like to start a CPG brand or to survive as a CPG brand. But in that first moment where you're like, you get the thumbs up and the buyer's like, these are effing delicious. Yes, please, I will take them. Like, then what? Are they telling you I need 30,000 boxes of this by, January 17th? Or what
Yeah.
does that look like? And what does that starting MOQ look like? And are they giving you a chance to scale? And I know some of this might be like probably really
They give you a store count. I think they do give you. So today, I don't 100% remember I think what we probably did is whatever the minimum run was, we did that. Today, the algorithm is very easy for us because we know our average turns per store per week. So it's really easy, not easy, but it's easier to
Mhm.
forecast and anticipate kind of what the product will do. There's obviously always unicorns and we're like, wow, that exceeded forecast. But we really have it down now where it's pretty much just like the math is in there. But yeah, I don't even know looking back. Like I can't can't remember how we knew what to produce on our first run. I would
Yeah.
think that we got our store count with Whole Foods and we probably just went with whatever the minimum was. But one thing that we did do is, we really didn't have anything to do except support it at Whole Foods. So when we first launched, it was in 27 stores and it was in the North Atlantic region, which was basically Maine through like parts of Connecticut. But the majority of the stores were in Massachusetts. So we moved to Massachusetts, we moved to Boston, and we literally demoed every single day, every
Oh,
single day for I want to say like 4 months. Actually, we demoed twice a day. So the windows were 11 to 3 and then 4 to 7. And we demoed every day, twice a day. And we had nothing else to do. We had no employees. We were only in those 27 Whole Foods. So we were like, you know what? Why not? And
wow.
we just traveled and we just drove from Whole Foods to Whole Foods to Whole Foods. And it obviously, caused a surge in sales that was beyond what the organic sales would have been. But it also was so incredibly powerful. And I don't know if brands can do this today because I think that the barriers to entry into, especially with frozen, into getting into the store is a little bit different. We just like walked in back then. I mean, we would schedule it, we would call, we would ask to speak with the demo coordinator. I mean, it was a much simpler time. But
Wasn't it?
we
So
would like
great.
feel in our cooler. We would set up an induction burner, but it really allowed us to have an opportunity to really talk to our customer. And I always say, like, the key to being successful in this industry is like, know your consumer. Like, make your consumer your best friend. I mean, not literally, but like, just know your consumer because
Yeah.
that is who you're essentially working for. And those few months early on, all I did was just talk to consumers. I was like, you love it? Tell me why. What do you want next? And I just did that all day. And it was just an incredible demo program where I just cooked the product. I fed
Mhm.
people. I got to witness their reaction firsthand. And I truly do not think we would be successful today or as successful if I did not have that 4 month launch strategy. I didn't have children. I was very young and me and those dumplings, we were everywhere. Like, we just stood in front of the frozen aisle and we sampled until the cows. And it was like, I guess you would call it today guerrilla marketing, but it wasn't even. It was just an opportunity to talk to the
Right.
consumer all day long.
Right. Like some of that infrastructure that existed, there was a demo coordinator, but the difference that you made was just freaking grinding it out. And man, I'm so impressed. Like,
Yeah.
I might be a little bit in love. Like stories like this are like how it's made and just appreciating how valuable it is to get real live customer feedback, not only to help with the product roadmap, but honestly, just connecting with other people gives you the energy you need to keep going the next
Yeah.
day, right? Like, I
Oh
can't,
my God,
yeah,
it totally gives you energy. Like when I would see somebody cry because they hadn't had a pot sticker in 10 years, it would make me cry.
right.
I mean, it's just such a feel good experience, like no pun intended, but just to see how food can really light someone up and bring them back to a childhood memory or make them just feel included. Food is I obviously I work in food, but I just think food is such an emotional experience for people.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome to be able to like help create those moments for people. So demos are an amazing tool, and obviously not only doing the demos but being able to be the one at the demos or really witness it for yourself is even better. But as we get bigger, it's obviously I'm only one person. I can't be everywhere and I can't be in the store. But having that experience early on really helped us create those like fundamentals.
Wow. I have goosebumps. It's like really amazing. And just goes to show how much love and authenticity that you've put into the whole thing. Like to do that with your product day in, day out for months and months and months. It's like that is a love letter to the product, to the customer, and to the whole mission.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
Yeah.
what I know what your days were like 10 years ago now. What are your days like today? What does it look like when you fast forward from all that and that plane lands and what's the next plane that you're taking off?
What is a day in the life for me right now?
Yeah, day in the life of Vanessa.
I mean, it changes. Every day is like a new adventure. A lot of times I still go to most big sales meetings, which I love. I mean, that hasn't changed. I still love getting in front of retailers and selling the vision and the brand. I still get such a adrenaline rush from that, whether it be Whole Foods or Walmart or Costco, you name it. Like, I love meeting with retailers. I love being able to talk about the innovation and the new launches and how we're going to, support and execute. So that is something that whenever there's a retailer meeting, I try and go. And same with big launches. I love going and like being on the floor and seeing the product get made. So there's still like quite a bit of travel between, from the product side or the retailer side that I still do. And then when I'm in New York, I have like a 15 to 20-minute walk every morning from my home to the office. And I typically feel when I get to the office, it's like just go, go, go all day, just, tons of meetings, but it's fun. We're all kind of here together. And like I said earlier, it's just a lot of like fun collaboration. And, it helps too that like there's a kitchen in the office. So I do spend a lot of the day eating and, testing out like new ideas and tinkering with stuff. Sometimes I'll, eat, then hop into my office to do a meeting and then go back out into the kitchen and eat some more. But every day looks different. I don't, yeah. It's never boring, there are some days too where I'll look at my calendar in the morning. I'm like, oh, I don't have that much on my calendar today. And then those
Yeah,
days usually end up being the busiest.
totally.
Um,
Right. Why is that?
I don't know.
It's not cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I was curious about at the beginning. So you've got Friedman's and then you've got kind of a recipe that you've developed there, and then you decide that you want to commercialize that and go into retail. Did you ever consider naming it after the restaurant? Was it always very clear to you that it would be a separate thing? Did having that kind of like in your back pocket help to qualify or familiarize the buyer with like who you were and what your bona fides were as you were like sending him this bag of money wrapped dumplings?
Um, we never considered naming the brand Friedman's. The idea for Feel Good Food started before Friedman's.
Oh,
So if anything, it would have been the other way around. I think we did talk at one point about naming Friedman's Feel Good, but never the other way around. The brand name was intentional. And I remember being asked early on, like, well, your products are egg rolls and dumplings. That doesn't really sound like a Feel Good Foods brand. And that was always it was intentional in that we knew we were going to innovate beyond Asian foods. We knew that we wanted to build a brand where we could grow into it and not grow out of it. So
yeah.
I always thought that the brand would be expansive in the product offering. And I wanted to create a name that spoke to the mission. So today, I think that if you look at the entire brand portfolio, the name makes complete sense. But for a while, it didn't. But I always knew the long term vision, so I wasn't worried about it. So,
You're like, just press me. It's like,
yeah. So for a while, people were like, "Huh," but I think that the brand name speaks beautifully to what we are creating.
yeah. Yeah, it really does. And I think it kind of brings, there's this idea of comfort food or comforting food, but also foods that you feel good when you're eating. Um and the way that you're positioning the packaging as well, where it's fun and it speaks to sort of the joy of the eating experience and not necessarily the constraint that you've put on all of it. And I have to assume that that was very intentional as well.
Yes.
Did that change as you got to know your customer better or your retailer better over time? Did you start with a certain kind of packaging direction and then
Oh, we went through a major rebrand. Our packaging, there was a total evolution, and the
yeah,
brand looks very different today. But I also think that we learned a lot and we grew up. And when we started, I had a friend do it, and it was like in my, everything was like out of my studio apartment. So the brand, I don't think I wouldn't say that the customer changed. I would say that everything matured and evolved. And I think we actually, it expanded. I think we realized that we were speaking to a larger audience than we initially had thought we were. And we really wanted the packaging to reflect that.
And tell me a little bit more about what you learned, like in that packaging and that kind of rebrand moment that like was working well at the beginning, but then you found either like was it a problem thing or an opportunity thing or a little bit of both that was kind of the solve there?
I think it's just was like learnings and I don't necessarily think it was like one problem. It's that we live in a very different time now than we did in 2012.
Yeah.
So I wanted to remain current as we grew into more stores. I wanted to make sure that the product, which is I think the most important thing ever in frozen food, is that it was easy to find and I didn't want to get lost on the shelf. So I wanted to make sure that the packaging really popped. Also, like with frozen, it's very different than, another part of like center storage. You're opening the door, you're closing the door, you're opening and closing it. So the door really fogs up. So I felt that the white packaging was kind of blending in and people
Oh.
were having a hard time finding us. So that was the decision to move to a bolder color like yellow. The one thing that is the same is we've always led with the food photography as really being the hero on the front of pack, because at the end of the day, like our products are not made in a lab. We literally have taken all of our chef inspired recipes and brought it to frozen. So I wanted to make sure that the food is what you see first when you look at the packaging to really, invite people in and let them know that yes, it's frozen. Yes, you can find it at your local grocery store, but like you are going to have a food experience. Like it is going to be culinary and also, none of our stuff, it's not, I mean, a lot of it, like you kind of do feel like you're eating out at home. It's a
Yeah.
treat, right? So I wanted to, the packaging to really reflect that.
And the recipes themselves too, has that changed over time? Either you're following customer preferences or following sales trends, which are a reflection of that. Were there things that were working at the beginning that you've changed course on, or have you found sort of like really steady, reliable recipes too that have almost never changed?
Yeah, no, we don't really change recipes. I think the pot stickers when we first launched, I mean years and years and years ago, I think that maybe a little bit
Yeah.
from when we first launched in 27 Whole Foods with scale, but in a good way. I think they got better because we became more efficient and we learned how to make it more like a traditional pot sticker. But that just came with just spending a lot of time overseas and really studying pot stickers and I think that was probably the most challenging launch ever.
Yeah.
It's crazy food science, So maybe our recipes have changed. I would think for the better, but no, we've never like radically changed anything. I think that we just spend a lot of time up front really working on creating delicious food that when we launch it, we know people are going to love.
I mean, I can't think of a better note to wrap it up on than that. Delicious food that you think or know people will love is like it's the whole ball game.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you for sharing so much about the story. I love the origin of it all. I love how you ground it out, and I'm so enthusiastic about the success that you found, and just a really big fan and customer. So it's fun to meet the woman behind the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was so fun. And yeah, it was a great conversation. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Commerce is Chaos. If you're listening, I have a feeling you know just how much good leaving a 5-star review can do for a team. Drop us a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to Commerce is Chaos wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to our Substack, also called Commerce is Chaos, for more good stuff and actionable tools to build your business.